Hi.
Hi. Welcome to the Refined Strength Podcast. One of my first in-person guests, Jessica Best.
Yay.
She is a coach with Pro Physique. And so we are former coworkers, and she's also a fellow Texas transplant because you moved here from Canada the same year I moved here from Texas or from Seattle. So I want to start with just like, tell me about yourself and who you are, and just like, tell us.
Okay. I'm Jess. I'm Jessica Best.
Jessica Best.
I know, Jess. I'm actually from Canada, so I'm Canadian. And like Rachel said, I moved here about two and a half years ago, which is nuts. That much time has gone by. So I am a Canadian living in Texas. I am, I guess, a former like synchronized swimming athlete. I grew up in athletics, very like dedicated to the sport and my athletes. When I retired synchro, I started coaching. So I was like coaching since I was 19.
Coaching synchro.
Yeah, coaching synchro. Yeah. So I was coaching athletes. Like synchronized swimming athletes. And I have like 2 degrees. I worked for a while, but the whole time that I worked, I was always coaching synchro. And I got a job offer to take that full time. And that's when I went coaching full time, again, synchro, and worked with high performance athletes. And like, that's kind of my basis of me and where kind of like my understanding of coaching started was just in cardio-based high performance athletics. And then it just became very daunting on my personal life.
How so?
Well, I would coach in the mornings at like 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning until like 8. And then I would have like this in between time. And then I would go back to train from like 4, sometimes 3 to 4 till like 7 to 8 p.m. at night. Yeah. And that was like Monday to Friday. And then Saturdays I would always train as well. And we would have like 6-hour training sessions on Saturday.
What does training look like for synchronized swimming?
Well, my athletes would have like on land sessions with a like trainer, whereas I would just like oversee their their strength training, but the majority of their training was in the pool. Okay. I was never in the pool. Everybody always thought that I was in the pool. But when you're coaching, you can't see like.
Oh, so you're like above, you're on land while they're in the pool.
Yeah. So really similar to us when we get our check-in pictures from our athletes, or like when we send them to our coaches, we want to see what like the judges would see. It's the same thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So like for me as a coach, I would just be on deck for like hours and hours at a time, either sitting or standing and like yelling across the pool at my athletes. And taking them through their routine. I would choreograph their routine. It's very similar to like figure skating where they have routines with music that they get judged on, but then they also have like elements that they get judged on. So like technical aspects. So there's like an artistic and technical aspect. Anyways, and then they of course would like lane swim because they had to have good conditioning and hold their breath and have to do like full unders of the pool underneath the water and stuff like that. So it's pretty.
It's a lot. It's so intense. And it's like a sport you don't even realize is like a real sport as like an outsider. Like synchronized swimming, I feel like is not that. Is it a bigger thing in Canada?
No.
Anyway, keep going.
I don't think it's a bigger thing in Canada. It's
such a niche sport.
Yeah, it is. It's like a very not well-known sport. I feel like a lot of people know what it is because it's like the second Austin Powers movie where they had him come out and there's except that is like not synchronized swimming. But we're not allowed to touch the bottom of the pool, so you have to tread water the whole time. We throw people up in the air and they do like tricks. So there's like gymnastics involved, but without a floor, essentially. So it's pretty intense, but the like my personal life was suffering a lot. And just like me as a wife, because I've been married since I was 24. So my husband Bob and I, we've been together since we were 19. So he and I like grew up through all of this. So he's known me since I started this and knew that that was like a dream that I had for myself. But it got to a point where like I didn't have my weekends to myself. I didn't have my evenings to myself. And like Bob works a 9 to 5, so does the majority of people.
Yeah.
Right. I would travel a lot on the weekends, especially in competition season, basically from January till June. There were at least 2 to sometimes 3 weekends of the month where I was gone. And I was like,
oh wow.
Or I was training.
Yeah.
I was like at the pool for like 8 hours a day. So it was a lot, and it kind of got to a point where I had to either like shit or get off the pot from the perspective of, am I going to go and train at like the center, which is basically for like Olympic hopefuls. And
because you were coaching people like younger, like young adults, like that were before the hopeful stage, right? Like getting ready to try to be on the Olympic team.
Yeah, so they were basically trying out for the Olympic team. So they would make like national teams, but they were 14 to like 16 years old.
Yeah.
And then
so it was either go to the next level of that coaching, which is even more intense than it already was.
Yeah.
Right. Or decide to just totally shift. Right.
Yeah. And I would have had to like move to Montreal and stuff like that. And I don't speak French.
Is it a good paying job? Like is it worth doing that? Not really.
No.
Yeah.
Like I made no money.
It's definitely a passion.
It's definitely it was a
project.
passion. It was not a money incentive thing. And so, and I mean, that's always been me too. I've never been someone to go after like money and finances. It's always been from an emotional, like passion, desire, drive standpoint.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to make money, but
yeah,
I need to live.
It's not the only motivation.
Right.
Yeah.
So I was really thankful that like when this job opportunity came up, we were in a financial place that we could do that. So then, yeah, basically I transitioned to being an in-person trainer, and I worked in a big box gym for about 2 years, knowing that was not what I wanted to do, but it was such a great opportunity for me because I was able to be hands-on with like normal people.
Yeah, real people, not athletes.
Not athletes who have like an insane body awareness, which I mean, some of them don't, and that's fine. Yeah. But it just gave me that broader perspective. And I'm so thankful for that, because now when my clients send me training videos, I can see how their body moves and understand that from like not a high performance athletics level.
Yeah.
So I did that for a while, and then I actually had my own company for a while. I like started my own coaching company. I went out on my own one-on-one training, and then transitioned into online coaching actually just before like March 2020 happened.
That's when you joined Pro Physique? Or no, you didn't join until later?
Yeah, I joined, I want to like say like 8 months or something like that later. I actually don't know when.
I feel like you started after I did. And I started like January 2021 at Pro Physique.
Okay. Yeah. I did start after you.
Yeah.
So maybe it was like a year later.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
So you were training and coaching online on your own. What made you then decide to like go to the next level of like joining Pro Physique?
Yeah. I mean, so Steven was my coach. So when I transitioned from synchronized swimming coaching to personal training, I started to also transition for me and my personal goals of just being an athlete again, because I put that on the back burner for so long to focus on my like advancement as a coach.
Yeah.
And I didn't really have that thing, that desire within myself until I realized that I was putting all of that into other people and not myself.
Yeah.
And so then I did more research, and Stephen was my first coach. So Stephen's another coach with Pro Physique, and him and Paul basically like started the company together, basically, right? Or it was
Yeah, I mean, Paul was coaching,
Yeah.
and then basically like what I've always known is like Misty started seeing, like Misty, Paul's wife, like started seeing like, wow, you have a lot of inquiries just sitting there. Like you need to do something with these. Like there's people, he's like, he's always like told the story like, oh yeah, I'll get to those when I'm ready, like when I have room.
Yeah.
And she was like, no, you need to like bring on another coach. And I think Steven and him were really good friends. Steven was like trying to help a lot. And so he brought him on as an assistant coach. And then that's kind of where it like grew from there. They started slowly adding more coaches, and then vastly adding coaches later.
Yeah. So I researched Paul, and knew that, you know, I just kind of aligned just values wise at the time, and hired Stephen, and then I started competing in 2018 was my first show, and I competed in Natural Federation just to try it out. I was like, I don't know. And then so Canada has their own kind of federation. So the NPC is like the American like standard, I guess. Well, I feel like that's like the standard.
Yeah.
CPA is the Canadian version of NPC. So
you can go from CPA to IFBB. Just like NPC to IFBB.
Yeah. So I started competing in the CPA in 2019 and 2020. So I became a bodybuilder as part of that, and like learned lots as an athlete as well as a coach, become more educated in that realm of coaching competitors and what that looks like and all of that. And then it was it must have been 2021.
Yeah.
When I started working with Pro Physique, and basically Stephen reached out to me and was like, okay. How is your coaching going? Blah, blah, blah. Because at that time, like he had known me for like 3 years.
Yeah. Knew you pretty well.
Yeah. And I was like, it's good. But honestly, like I didn't enjoy managing my own business. I think just because I was not set up to do so. And it just owning my own business and managing like the finances side of things, I was like,
it's not for everybody.
That was not. I honestly, I was like, I was very underprepared. And also it was not interesting to me. Like I just didn't love it. And not to say that you should love every portion of your job.
No, like, but there's definitely like a difference in just like, now that I've been on both sides of it, as like I was a trainer for a while, I did training independently as like just an independent trainer at different gyms, and then I was a coach with Pro Physique, and like before that it was very like side hustle style. Like I wouldn't say I had my own business before that. I just like coach people and they like Venmo me, right? And then Pro Physique, it was much more legit, and then it toward after a certain point, like I've talked about on past episodes, is just like I saw the need and like the drive for me to do it on my own and like actually run my business, because I basically saw just like areas where I felt like my business and my coaching could improve if I got to call my own shots.
Yeah.
And I think not everyone needs that. And not everyone needs to call their own shots in their business in order to be a good coach. And I just saw like, we all have such different paths and different strengths and things that make us get into that flow and get where like be successful as a coach. And it's just like personal preference, honestly. Like, because now that I've left, I've obviously talked to like plenty of you that are still there and like other people that are on other teams. And it's just really like everyone is a little different in like what they prefer. So I totally respect that. It's like, because it's not managing the business side, like it's not fun. Like it's figuring out how to like build my website by myself, that wasn't especially fun. But
you have to have a lot of like other skills.
Yeah. And I'm really grateful for like the skills I developed before coaching. And when I worked for my friend who owns a business, and for a while, like when I first started coaching for Pro Physique. And I worked for her for about a year, just like in kind of operations. And I was able to like learn how to build a WordPress website, or learn how to update rather, not build it, and learn different things about like SEO and graphics and things like that, because she was a graphic design company. And yeah, I think since I learned it enough, I was like, all right, I can do this by myself.
Mhm.
And if I need help, I'll delegate, or I'll hire someone, or I'll ask for help somewhere. But like ultimately, it's more fun to me being able to like just see so many different possibilities of my own business and like my own reach, and how I can do that and not have to answer to anybody.
Yeah.
Versus having to answer to somebody and like having to like, kind of be in meetings and do things like that, be part of a brand.
Yeah.
Whereas like, but before I got to that point, I definitely saw the benefit that you still see now. I was just like, yeah, this is great. I'm part of a brand. I can like go to these events and like be part of the family. And so, yeah, I think personal preference, definitely.
Yeah. It just didn't like call to me. I also didn't have any of those like building a website and
Mhm.
all of that systems involved. So Bob has his master's in business. So for a while I was using him as like a bunch of things that I required for my business
Yeah.
at the time. But like that's not fair, because it was just it wasn't his job. And he
Yeah,
has a
for
pretty
sure.
demanding job. And like I think he wants to be a business owner. He just doesn't know what he wants to do. Um, but he has all those skills, but like doing it for somebody else, I think is very different than doing it for you.
For sure.
And I
Yeah.
think if I had the time and the mental capacity to kind of get my head around that, I maybe would have enjoyed it a little bit more.
Mhm.
But it just wasn't for me at the time. And I
Yeah.
mean, if you think of like the whole like landscape of things that was happening throughout 2020, I
Yeah.
mean, I could have also just tried to figure out and make it work, and I did for a while.
Mhm.
But it was a hot mess. Like I
Yeah.
didn't have a website or anything like that.
Plus, you had not been coaching for very long. And I think that
Mhm.
like the confidence factor is what holds a lot of people back too, from like really going all in on their business as like just a standalone coach, is like you don't have the confidence yet.
Yeah.
Like I didn't have the confidence to just start coaching on my own, even though like I was fresh off my divorce. I was like, I don't really like my corporate job anymore in property management. What should I do? And I was like, Paul had been talking to me about coaching for a while. And so it was always kind of in the back of my mind, and I was still coaching people on the side. And so it just like made sense to me to join that, because I did not have the confidence yet.
Mhm.
And I think the confidence that I had last year was what drove me to do what I did. But sometimes the confidence can also do like what you're doing. Like I see you just continuing to like push to be just like part of the best, like a really good team, like just part of making it become that, and become just the next evolution or revolution of what it's always been.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we're in a space now where everybody's a coach or
Mhm.
can be a coach, I guess. But I think it's also in seeing the value of other people that maybe have different opinions or ways of doing things.
Yeah.
And like I value that in you. And I mean, we're friends anyways, but like that's why even when you were a coach at Pro Physique, like you and I have had conversations and phone calls and stuff about different ways to do
Yeah.
things,
Yeah.
right? And help different clients in different ways. And I've done that with a few other coaches on the team, but also like before I joined Pro Physique, I felt very lonely in Canada. Like I felt very disconnected.
Yeah. Especially when most of your acquaintances and friends that are coaches are down here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I didn't, I like at the time, like I knew you and I knew of you, but like I had never met anybody. I had
Mhm.
never met anyone.
Yeah.
I mean, I met Stephen and Paul in 2020,
Yeah.
and that's it.
Mhm.
So I had to reach out and I had to try to connect with different people and different coaches. And at the time, like I did not Instagram lives, not Facebook lives. I had like Zoom calls and stuff like that.
Yeah.
and put those things on social media and tried to foster that like
Community.
that community and collaborative effort. And I think that that has just kind of like the connection with Pro Physique and working with a team has really helped me foster that a little bit more within myself.
Yeah.
Because I was really hesitant to do that. I was like, why would anybody want to talk to me?
Yeah. When you're like, you know, I've only competed a couple times. I'm not like anybody, I think it's in our industry, it's easy to think that you don't matter to people and that your voice isn't really being heard when you're like not a pro or not like a coach at X level or whatever. Like, or if you don't have this many followers, when really it's like you might have 3,000 followers, but like that's 3,000 people that you could affect. And like think of like you have 60 some clients now, like those are all people that like, yeah, they might have come from wherever they came from, like they're people you're impacting. And then like what I've seen just in my years of coaching too, which is I think so cool, is we have like all of these people that like I have the followers that I have, and I'll get a client inquiry that's someone who's followed me for like 5 years.
Yeah.
That have just like, I just really have always loved the content you put out. And like, I haven't really been ready to reach out, but now I am. I'm like, fuck
That's
yeah,
cool.
that's great. And like, that's the power of social media. It's not super quick. It's not like I'm not getting hundreds of inquiries a day or a month or whatever, but I'm getting enough to eat and also enough to just like hone my skills and like continue to see that like what I'm doing matters. Like, I might not get great engagement on an Instagram post, but if it helps 30 people or 100 people versus 500 or 1,000, then like I'm still doing a good job.
Well, and that's what really like, again, like feeling like I was kind of alone up in Canada when I started being a client of Pro Physiques. It was the connection that I could make with people through social media. And I started to see social media as like this really, it can be misleading or toxic, but it can also be really positive and like you can create your own family within social media. Like I met so many people and had never actually even met them in person, and they were like very close friends of mine before I even met them in person.
Yeah.
And so it's just cool that we can even do that as coaches. And yeah, you just never know who you're impacting by just putting out a silly story or a post or something like that.
Yeah, it's true.
But yeah.
So what would you say, we talked a little bit yesterday about like your like transition from being in like really intense sports as synchronized swimmer to now being a bikini competitor, and just what are some changes that you've seen that have like that maybe like or lessons that you've learned in that transition? Because I think a lot of bodybuilders or people that compete or want to compete, they come from something like that. They come from another sport, and they have no idea. Like there's just so many things about bodybuilding that they don't really understand, or they're not ready for.
Yeah. I mean, I think the biggest thing that I have needed to shift within myself is like smaller and thinner doesn't make you a good bodybuilder necessarily. Because, and I have a lot of clients as well that have come from like a more cardio based background. And like, that's what synchronized swimming is. It's it's cardio. It's like endurance cardio, balls to the walls for like 5 minutes, performance style. And so that was like my life and my realm. And so body image is really entrenched in like that kind of sport. And so I struggled with that a lot at the beginning because I felt like, well, I did sport and I have like some muscle, which I did, but like not really.
Muscle exists on
it's
Frank.
there.
It's
I'm
just not big. I don't need to get big. I'm a bikini competitor.
Right. And so I felt like this was a sport that I could just like leap into and do well because I already had like a sports background.
You weren't fat.
No,
like
and I was,
you were already thin, and a lot of people think like, oh, bikini girls are just skinny,
yeah,
and they don't really
Yeah.
need like tons of muscle.
yeah, and I was like, I was fit, right? Like I was like, all right, this is okay. And really quickly learned that like that doesn't stack up.
Mm-mm.
And I struggled with that for, I don't know, like my first 3 years of competing. And it was actually in taking it's 2024. So in taking like 3.5 years away from the stage that I've worked on embodying, coming from a place of like being strong and being able to perform well and taking up space and being confident with being able to take up space. And that's really awesome. And that's the lesson that I had to learn, was because I competed year after year, just thinking like, oh, maybe I just needed to get leaner, or maybe, I don't know, my 6 month off season, like that's going to be okay. Right.
Sure.
And I kind of held myself in this box of
I need to stay under this weight.
Yeah.
I can't get too big. I can't get, I can't lift too heavy. I think that's something that bot, like, especially bikini girls, but even I see it in like figure girls too, who are just like not quite understanding like the size you need to get to, is like they put these limits on themselves from the beginning, instead of realizing that limits that we have, like they're meant to be pushed, and like pushed and then adapted to and pushed some more. And sometimes we have to like take steps back, right? Sometimes like bikini girls do get too big, but it's pretty fucking hard to get too big, especially if you're natural too. But even as an enhanced competitor, like bikini competitors who do choose to go that route, which like I think bikini is the only division really that you can go really far in naturally.
Yeah.
For some people, not everyone. But even enhanced competitors, they're enhanced because they need to grow usually, and they can't do it without doing that, or they want to do it on a certain timeline or whatever. But it's just like they don't see the fact that like they just need to train harder. You just need to be okay with the scale going above 130 pounds.
And that's what it is. Like I held myself in a box at 120 for a really long time. And then I was like, oh, okay, like 130 is okay. Like I can be 130 and that's acceptable. And like that was kind of the box that I held myself in, and was kind of held in by my coach as well.
Yeah.
And like I'm not a pro. Sometimes and you can see like there are some coaches who coach pros that and those pros are able to be leaner year round.
Well, because they've worked to that point, they have mature muscle, and they have a much lower body fat set point. Yeah. And it's hard to keep your body fat set point really low and really lean when you're just starting out. Or just starting out doesn't have to mean like being young. It can also just mean like just starting out in your strength training journey and in your bodybuilding journey. Yeah. Like for you, like you did cardio for so long, and then started getting into lifting like in your early 30s. Or
yeah, I mean, like I did strength training in
but like really intentional like hypertrophy training,
like mid 30s.
Yeah.
Early 30s, mid 30s ish, because I'm 38 now, so I have to like work backwards in math,
which is crazy because it doesn't look like that.
But I mean, yeah, like I didn't really focus on strength training in that way until I was like, I don't know, 32, 33. So I think you're good. No, it's all good. I was like, your battery's dying. But yeah, I think that there's also something to be said with, you see these like 23, 24-year-olds who are freaking jacked, man. Like, damn.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I'm older. Like, that's okay. I should be able to do that. And it's not that way.
No.
Yeah. And to hold yourself into a box like I did with body weight, I thought that I was lifting heavy, but I wasn't pushing myself close to that failure mark. Like it was like heavy, but it was more from okay, I'm doing these reps and I'm like going through the movement.
This has always been heavy for me.
Yeah. And like, this is okay. And I'm breathless. Like that was hard. Okay, great. but it wasn't
pushing for adaptation.
really, no.
Yeah. And you weren't spending enough time in those phases too, right? I think it's really common, like we were talking about this yesterday, I think, about like mini cuts.
Yeah.
And how like kind of overrated they are and overused, I think they are. People get a little uncomfortable in their off season, or they think that they need a mini cut to like prep for the prep. So they do a mini cut and then they reverse like for a few months and then they do their prep, but like they didn't get their metabolism back to a good place and they really only lost like a couple pounds in their mini cut. So like, what was it really for?
And then they look the same.
Yeah, they look the same.
Or they lose muscle.
Or they lose muscle, or they don't get as lean in their prep because they weren't able to, because they had to push so hard because of the fact that they had like just downregulated their metabolism during their mini cut. Doesn't mean that all mini cuts are like that and unsuccessful, but it does mean that they should be like really considered, like, is this truly going to be useful? Same thing with like an off season and the length of the off season. Off season is a combination of different phases, right? It's a combination of the reverse diet, if you've competed before, or whatever metabolic building phase. And then after that, you're like, during that time, you're not really growing. Most people are not really growing truly. They're not putting on mature muscle. Then you have growth phases, whether enhanced or not enhanced. Then you have health phases or holding phases between growth phases, because we do need, whether you're on drugs or not, you need a period of time where you're just kind of chilling and you're maintaining, you're letting that muscle mature, you're letting your metabolism kind of just adapt to the high food. Sometimes we need to pull back food a little bit or add some activity, but like mini cuts generally just add issues in my opinion.
Just like can lengthen your time of spinning your wheels.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and like those phases that you were talking about, like I'm thinking about a client who's now in prep, but last summer we had like a maintenance phase, but it's because she communicated with me. She's like, okay, my next like 2 to 3 months are just going to be really busy with travel and kind of like these like mini trips. And she was really advancing in her career. So there was a lot of like job stuff. And that's kind of why she was also traveling. And my process there was like, okay, we're in a good place where your food is relatively high. Like, let's focus on life.
Yeah.
Like, let's do that life stuff.
Great idea.
Right. Like, and so these phases don't always have to be so bodybuilding focused per se. Like, you can still have your routine.
Still do your shit.
Yeah. Like, you can still train. And like for her, my goal for her training was like, let's just like train hard. Like, make sure that you recover, give yourself rest days, but like train hard as fuck. Like go for it in the gym. And she would still send me training videos and she was still on her food basically all the time.
And I bet the fact that she wasn't stressing about like, oh my God, I'm not doing like, I'm not 100% of the time, or like, oh my God, I'm not able to train as often as I can, or whatever, that, or like, I don't have to worry about extra food or being like really, really high in food. That stress reduction in general probably helped her progress more. Right?
Yeah. And I mean, like, that's one of the big lessons I learned for myself is in my 2018, 2019, 2020, like, there's not a lot of time that you have between seasons to even have that.
No.
And so you're basically like on your plan all of the time. And you're so focused on when that next show is going to be that you're always like working backwards from that. And it's like, I mean, when I stepped off stage in 2020, I just decided to like let go of my timeline. It's like, I was like, it's going to be like 1.5 to 2 years.
I'm going to take a long off.
Yeah. I was like, wow, it's so long. And now it's 2024. But it like, so you are always working backwards, I feel like, in some degree, whether or not you have like a timeline or not, but it's not as compact, like it's not as short term. So you're able to also live your life outside of bodybuilding and understand that you can still be a bodybuilder.
Yeah.
Within your life. And
you don't have to have an answer of like, oh yeah, this is my next show whenever anybody asks you. I think that's what like gets people in their heads a lot, is like they go to the gym, they look a little jacked in their off season or whatever, or they haven't competed in a while, or even if they have competed recently, like everyone always wants to ask you, like that's small talk with a bodybuilder.
Yeah.
Is like, when's your next show?
Yeah.
No matter how long you've been off, no matter what you told them last week, they're gonna ask, when is your next show? And that's just like that can get to people, I think, and it makes people have FOMO. It makes people feel like, I find that people really think that others take them less seriously as a bodybuilder if they're not competing regularly. And that's like the biggest mistake I think you can make as a competitor, is caring what the fuck other people think about like your timeline, because nobody cares about your timeline. Literally, judges are the last person that cares about your timeline. Judges don't like, yeah, they might remember you from last year, maybe, but as an amateur, probably not. Honestly, they're going to see, do you look right for the criteria today? Like they don't care about your timeline. They don't care that you wanted to do this show really badly because your birthday is tomorrow. They don't care that you,
or your friends doing it.
Yeah, or your friends doing it. Like they don't care. They care about how you look. So there's no reason to like have any kind of strict timeline. Like you should have goals, you should have a timeline of some sort, but like don't get on stage until you're actually going to make a difference. And if you've only been in an off season for 6 months or even a year, and you're a hard gainer, or it's been tough to, you know, you've had a lot of ups and downs in your prep or your off season, then you're probably not going to show up any different.
Yeah. And the fact is, like, I needed to overcome some of those boxes that I held myself to, because I needed to grow. Like, I was so focused on a number staying within a certain ballpark. I was really like overly stressed about my food intake. And I didn't make any progress, but I needed to grow everywhere, like everywhere. And I needed to overcome seeing that number go up, and being okay with that number go up, and know that it wasn't because I was getting fat. And like,
there's gonna be body fat, but it's like you're not getting fat.
Like I was like, I had to put on body fat, and you still have those moments of, I have more body fat than I feel like I should, because when you go to stage, you're automatically now going to look at your body a different way for forever. Like it's a thing that you're always going to kind of have in the back of your mind. And as much as you can talk to yourself about like, yes, it's not sustainable, that's like one look for like that one day, etc., it does shift your mindset a little bit. And so you have to work through that. And rude.
Hopefully you guys can't hear the lawnmower outside.
I had to really work through that, especially from a sport where I started synchro when I was like 10. I want to say 10.
And there's probably no overweight people in synchro for the most part.
I mean, there are, but like not at the high. Like
not at the high, not the level you were teaching, not the level you held yourself to as standard wise.
No, and like the muscularity at that point is like thin and lean.
Yeah, you don't want to be too heavy.
No,
if you're a bodybuilder and you're heavy with muscle, like swimming is different. You're just like running is different.
The last time I got in the pool, I was like, whoa, like what the fuck? This is so heavier. Because you like, I mean, I am heavier now. Plus I have more mass. Which is great. Like I'm excited that I have more mass.
But it's definitely a funny
in the pool, it's not cool.
Realizing.
It's really hard. It's really hard.
Are you gonna try to do any like egg beaters in Mexico?
Egg beater is fine. Like egg beater is good for me, and like it's so natural for me to
I just learned the term of egg beater. It's like when you do like this with your feet.
So synchronized in we like use our arms for our legs. So like this is your legs, like this.
Oh, okay. Got it. So that's what you do.
Yeah. Instead of this.
To stay up.
Because this is treading water.
Yeah, where you basically like just kicking your legs.
Okay. Yeah. Egg beater is like you create a floor with the water.
That's so crazy.
Yeah. To like keep yourself up. So like for me, when I get in the water, egg beater is like, it's just, I can't tread water. I'll just like go straight down.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I do like to play around in the water, but I don't like getting wet. It's like, Bob always.
Much rather just like walk in there, maybe to like cool off and then like go.
Yeah,
later.
no, or like stand in a pool and not have to tread water. Also, that's fine. And it's hot, like in Mexico. But Bob will always give me a hard time because I'm such a freaking wimp getting in and out, like getting into the pool. I hate it. He's like, you were a swimmer. I'm like, this is why I hate it.
Yeah.
It's because I was forced to for years. But I mean, yeah, coming from that sport and when I was in synchro, I was the like pusher of the highlights. So the highlights are the things where we like throw people in the air and shit. I was not on top of those. I was not that person. I was not the flyer. I was the person. I was like the base. I was the pusher. And so I was also always a little bit bigger as a swimmer myself.
Okay.
Just because I mean, I don't know. I'm 5'6" and I'm a bigger person. I don't know. I was not a flyer. And so that was always in my head too, right? Like, oh, okay, I'm gonna
you're already
do
big
bikini.
enough.
I'm gonna do bikini and like I'm gonna be cute and mini or whatever. And that's just like that's not how it is. And I mean, the body image was a big thing and like having to buy new clothes and stuff like that.
What do you feel like has helped you just get over that? Is it just time? Has it been like any inner work of any kind? Like have you done anything that you can feel like is like actual like actionable advice for people like struggling with the same thing? Like especially people like I've had quite a few women come to me who are like, and even men too, that like come from like a cardio background. Like they do F45 and they do Orange Theory and they do spinning and they just want to be lean and toned. So like, but they also want to compete. So like, what do you feel like is the best advice for people like that? Just in overcoming the body image stuff, just all of it.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's hard, but taking time away from dieting, and spending time away from dieting. And
you're talking about dieting as in like caloric deficit.
Yeah. Caloric deficit. So no fat loss phases. And not even maybe as a goal to like gain weight, but just stop dieting.
Stop focusing on losing.
Yeah.
Stop looking at the scale going down as a good thing or as a celebration.
Right. Yeah. And instead, like the thing that helped me a lot was focusing on performance in the gym. Just from me and like a performance background, it was a little bit easier for me to focus on getting stronger in the gym, getting better at my lifts, challenging myself differently in the gym than just doing the sets and doing them as fast as I could or burning as many calories as I could. Actually, one of the things that helped me a lot was getting rid of like my Apple Watch and my Garmin and shit.
The Orbings.
I know.
Yeah. So what do you think about that helped you?
I wasn't focused on the like amount of activity that I did or steps or calories or it was less about doing more and more about quality, I guess.
Yeah.
Like just getting rid of that for me because you're always looking at it.
Yeah.
Like you're always checking your
It's always like,
or your
even if
you
tell yourself like, oh, I don't really care. Like, I don't need to know the calories. Like you're still seeing it. You're still looking at it. And it's still like causing some kind of a feedback loop. And people don't really think about that when they're thinking about technology, especially if it's like technology we need. Like we need our phone. We need to be able to like reach our people and, see where our kids are or see, do different things like check our email. Like those are needs technically for our jobs and lives and everything like that. But so many non-necessities are built into the necessity product, like the calorie burn and like, did you stand this hour or like, whatever. And like so many of those things are good for so many people, but it's like the devices like an Apple Watch are so like you can't adjust that. You can't say like, I don't want to have a goal on calorie burn. I don't want to even track the calorie burn, but it tracks it anyway, no matter what.
And I'm that person that like, I know I can turn off these functions, but like, I'm not going to.
Yeah.
Because I'm also a little bit of like that A-type personality that I'm like, if I know that it's there, like, okay, I kind of want to look at it just because data, but removing that actually was super helpful for me. And it was a little bit of a lesson learned the hard way too.
In what way?
In like I shouldn't have competed in 2020.
Yeah.
And just looking back at that season, even though I think like there were so many positive outcomes from it.
Sure.
And like I wouldn't have been where I am today if I hadn't made that choice. But just kind of looking back at that and looking how like muscle I lost, and I truly stepped off stage and I said, I'm not doing that until I know that I can show up and be very different. Like it's not another year where I'm going to compete and come in like top 5, which is great, but like I don't want to come in top 5.
Yeah, you want an overall.
Yeah.
Like, because so many top 5s, I think it's like it's not many people really enjoy continuing to get that same type of placing. Most people need, like, if you're actually competitive, you need to see the next level. And I think both of us, since we've both had that kind of experience of like losing and like learning the hard way, and losing is relative, right? Like if you wanted the overall or you wanted the top 5, like, and you didn't get either of those things, then, you know, you lost. If you didn't win, you're a loser. So, but like, I think both of us are similar in that way because like that's happened to us and we have the power to impact people, like our clients or people that follow us or whatever, to not make that mistake. You know, I've gotten a lot of people in the last few months that are never competed before. They've been lifting maybe for 6 months to a year and they really want to compete. And some people are ready to compete this year and some people are not when they're in that place. Just depends on how long they've been training, what their metabolism is. And like, I always try to like almost be kind of harsh about the reality of where they're at because I've been there and you've been there too. So I'm sure that you kind of take the same approach when you get someone who's like really hell bent on competing, but you know that they're not ready to actually do what their goal is. Just like they say like, I want to get a pro card or I want to win an overall. Like, what's your approach and how you get them to, you know, not do that, not make that mistake?
I mean, I lay out for them what it'll look like if we go down the road that they want to go down. And I'm, like more harshly realistic with that expectation of this is what can happen. And it's not a guarantee, right? Like we can't tell the future. We don't know that this is what's going to happen. But I also backtrack in terms of, okay, if we're looking at your long-term goal, like I'll take a client that I just talked to about this actually. And I work back from, okay, if we want to do a show this summer, and that's like, let's say like 16 weeks away and you want to start prep now, but you have 25 pounds to lose. You're going to have to take more extreme approaches to do that. And that's what each week is going to look like. And then, you know, depending on what is your current calorie consumption at, what is your cardio at? Well,
how do you
these
feel
changes,
at that level
too? And these changes are going to look like this. And we see time and time again athletes who do more extreme measures to get to stage, and they just simply don't come in looking as like full in
healthy.
Terms of health wise. They look drawn out, they look tired,
can't get a pump.
And then how do you feel when you're like that? Like you feel like shit.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean that like, oh, if you prep the right way with us, you're not gonna feel like shit in prep. Like that's not the reality. You're probably gonna feel like shit at some point during prep. We want to have the best case scenario and hopefully not feel like shit for as long as possible. That's why sometimes I'll hold back on making changes for someone when like they made a little bit of progress and it's not like a lot of progress like I would have liked in a week or 2 weeks. And they might say like, I really want to push, but I'm like, well, we have 13 weeks left. So like maybe we can like hold one more week and that'll allow us to see if we can make some more progress. If we do, great. If we don't, yeah, then we can push. Because there's a time to push and there's a time to pull back or just maintain. Sometimes pushing can affect us negatively in the future. Like pushing early on too hard can affect you negatively in the future because then you don't have anywhere to pull from. You don't have anywhere to pull calories from because at that point you're already
in a hole.
yeah, you're already in a hole and you just can't, you're hitting concrete, like you're not able to dig any deeper. So I think that's really similar to like how I'll do is like just kind of lay out the timelines. Like this is very likely what will happen. You having to push this hard will elicit this type of result, and it's most likely not going to be successful. So why would I put you on stage? Why would I start you in a prep if I am 90% positive you're not going to be successful and you're going to fuck up your health?
Yeah.
Like, why would I do that?
And then you're just going to be running through the mill again, right? Like you're going to show up on stage. You're not going to be happy with your physique. Maybe you end up blowing your reverse because now you're emotionally so tied to that one thing that didn't work out. Now
you're very disappointed in yourself.
And now you've blown your reverse, but your metabolism is still in the hole. And so now you want to diet again, but you want to also compete in like 8 months to have the same.
And that's why I think a lot of people end up having pretty negative relationships or resenting competing is because they go through that cycle because they either didn't listen to the coach that told them to listen about that, or they went with a coach who didn't really care. They just put them on stage. Like, yeah, we'll grind, get you on stage, you know, throw everything at you we can, and we'll get there. And they might look great even, but that doesn't protect you from the harsh rebound or health issues or, you know, anything like that. Like you're still, if you're going at it that way and trying to be the exception to the rule or trying to be just, you know, the person that's going to do better than 90% of the people, then like you're just not gonna you're not gonna do well.
And I thought that I was that person. Like I literally
did too, for sure.
And that was one of the things that you asked, like, what are some tangible things? Like hire a coach that will have that conversation with you and be supportive of your goals, but also supportive of getting you there and having you in one piece physically and mentally and able to like maybe compete again in the future and like have a full like positive experience with it.
Well, look at some of the top pros that are not just top pros like high placing, but people who have had like successful runs year after year. A lot of people, like if I look at women like Sydney Gillen, Miss Figure Olympia, she had the same coach for like 8 years.
What? Really?
Yeah, she's been with, I think the pros, I forget which one, if it's Damien or the other guy, but like she's been with the same coach pretty much her entire career almost, like as a pro at least. And she's won 6 Olympias now, I believe. So like even, you know, the girl that gets second and third and wins a lot of pro shows, Jessica Reyes, like she's been with Andrew Vu for like a long ass time, like many, many seasons. So you can't, I think a lot of early on competitors or people that are just kind of like dipping their toes in, but still have that kind of goal of like, maybe I'm going to get a pro card or I want to get a pro card. They tend to think that they won't need a coach for as long, or they get, you know, kind of fucked up in their prep and they have health issues or they rebound or they don't like the thing that their coach is saying. So they leave. And because they think that, well, I don't need that. I need, you know, just to take time for myself, or I can handle my own off season. And there's exceptions to that for sure. I've had successful people like leave for a portion of off season and then come back to kind of prep for a prep. But for the most part, you're going to have so much more benefit out of being with someone, letting them learn your body for not months, but years, multiple seasons. I've been with my coach now 2.5 years. We haven't competed yet because we don't plan to until I'm ready. And I don't plan on leaving him anytime soon, even after I compete, because like I know he has my best interest at heart. And my coach specifically, and this is something like I'm very like inspired by, and I think it's informed a lot of my own coaching. And you're probably similar, just like in listening to some of your limb videos to clients this morning, like having not just the timeline for the right now, not just living week to week, but having like most pretty much all of my clients, especially the ones that are actually focused, like I have the next few years mapped out for them. Like they might not know that, but like that's what I have mapped out for them. Obviously, it can change as they change and as their feedback changes, but like I have phases and like this is how your prep should go, and then this is where your reverse will be, and then this is where, you know, we'll be after that. And they might leave, they might come back, whatever happens, happens. But like that's what he's shown me, and that's been really helpful for me. And I think like I see that in yourself too. Like you've had really more defined phases in your life as a bodybuilder that is only making you better and getting you to the point where you can succeed and be different than you were the last time.
Well, and I mean, even with like lifestyle clients, I'll get on the phone with someone and they're like, okay, we're going to do this for 3 months. And I'm like, well, does it stop after 3 months? Like, what changes? And I think it really, like, from this kind of goes back to me and coaching synchronized swimming. Like, I would coach the same athlete, one who was on the like 2020 Tokyo team. I started coaching her when she was 13.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh God, I don't know how old she is. She's not on the Olympic team anymore. But like, she hired me after she kind of like retired from the sport and hired me in person. And so then I was like training her in person in Canada for a while too. And so I got to see her kind of morph and grow as an athlete. And I could even see that when she was like 15, 16, 18, right? And so I've had that experience of going through years working with people and having them experience different phases in their life and having to like morph and change and adapt my coaching with them and what they needed at the time.
Yeah.
And like that's the same with bodybuilding. I have a few clients who are interested in the stage but don't know if they want to do that.
Yeah.
Right. And some of them, like one client actually, we're going to be starting prep this year, but we've been working for like a year and a half together.
Yeah.
No, 2 years. And she was just kind of like, you know, not sure. And at one point we're like, okay, we're gonna like shit or get off the pot. Like, let's go. But I have the next 2-3 years mapped out for her if we want to go the competing route. But she might also just get to stage and be like, I don't want to compete. And that's cool.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people don't like that show day experience. It's a lot. Like it's a lot.
Yeah.
But you can also still live a lifestyle that is bodybuilding without stepping on stage.
Yeah. Definitely.
And I think that that's missed a lot of times is you can still build your physique. You can still train hard. You can still eat well. You can still like have a good routine. You can still
have high standards for yourself.
You can
for your
still
living.
have high expectations for building your physique in certain ways and just like not want to step on stage, but also have a life with that.
Yeah. I think honestly that's becoming more common now than it ever was before. Like in our current like I don't know, in the last like 5 to 10 years as competing has become like more trendy, right? It's become a lot more trendy, especially as bikini has come into play. I think bikini started in 2014.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
So we've had 10 years now of bikini, maybe a little bit more. But like it's become more trendy, especially as it's become more attainable with more variety in divisions. So like bikini, men's physique, classic physique, figure versus wellness, women's physique, all of the different divisions, like there's something for everybody. But I feel like as the TikTok generation has like come about more, as like I have negative opinions about it as well, for sure. But one thing that I think it has come from it is like more people are training and being kind of like in the bodybuilding mindset of some kind, like training, eating, maybe doing drug, whatever, But they're not competing.
Yeah.
Like I know this girl in the gym that I see from time to time that I talk to that's like she looks great. Like she trains hard. She has a great attitude. She likes eating right. Like I've talked to her a few times because I talked to her, like asked her one time if she was going to compete ever. And she's like, you know what? I don't know. Like maybe I will sometime, but like I feel like I've gotten this a few times. People say like, I feel like I don't really want to like mess with my relationship with food, like in the way that bodybuilding could make that happen. And I'm like, fuck yeah, that's great. Like keep training hard, keep eating plenty. Like that's great. And it's not because I don't like people bodybuilding. I love that because it's my job, but it's also like if you don't think that you're ready for that mentally, there's no reason to do it. And it's a really important to get like just very in tune with yourself before you start competing, before you even hire a coach or while you hire a coach, to really understand like what is it you really want? Do you want to diet really hard? Do you want to have that much restriction at certain points? Do you want to have to be judging your body and having others judge your body on a daily or weekly basis? Because that's not for everybody. And I think those of us who are like long-term bodybuilders who are really into the actual sport of competing, not just living the lifestyle, I think we're still here. Like I've been doing it for almost 10 years now. I'm still here because I just love all of it. I love the thought of like putting myself out there and being judged in a subjective sport because I also have like a really strong sense of self and like who I am and like my worth. My worth has nothing to do with how a judge judges me at all. Like, yeah, I want to do well and I want to be competitive, but you can be competitive in that way and still have a really high self-worth and self-value regardless of where your body is at. I think that's why like the people that have the best off seasons and off season mindsets, like we've both been off for 3 or so years, 3 and 2.5 or whatever, is just the fact that like we don't connect our like self-worth with our size. Like I'm pushing 170 pounds. I never thought that I would get that heavy, like over, but like here I am. And but I'm excited about it. Like I'm actually excited. When I saw 168 the other day, I was like, damn, I never thought that that would happen.
And that you would look the way that you would look.
Yeah, exactly. I remember when I stepped off stage, my pro debut season, I remember Paul, he was my coach at the time. He said something like, I don't think we should get over the 150s in your off season. I think that's like kind of what made it so hard for you to get as lean as you needed to. And like that honestly fucked with me. Like I was hearing that was just like an automatic limit that I was like, yeah, he's right. Like I got too fat in the off season. And he didn't say I got too fat. Like he just said the number as like a limit. And like he was careful not to like be a dick or anything. But it did put a limit on me. And like going back to kind of what you were talking about earlier, when you put these limits on yourself and put yourself in this box, you limit some negative possibilities like getting too fat, but you also limit a lot of positive. Right? Like think about all the positives you could have gotten if you never thought 130 is my cutoff. I can't get above 130.
Like I'm 150 now.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like,
and you look great. Like,
and I never thought that exactly like you said at 170. I never thought that I would look the way that I look at 150. It's absolutely by like 15 pounds, the most I've ever weighed. And the fact that like when I've had the worst body image was the closest to stage. It was like when I was stage lean. Not now. Now I feel like, there's
I'm
days
doing my job. I'm just doing what I need to do.
There's days where I'm like, okay, like I feel a little thick, but like I can also get into the gym and train in a way that there was no way at 130 I was going to be able to train.
Yeah, definitely.
I can also go out and like go out for dinner or go get donuts or like eat the fucking biscotti that you gave me for coffee this morning and I'm not tracking it and that's fine.
We had biscotti with coffee in this house in the morning.
I was like, damn, this is good. Where the fuck did you go? But you know, like you reach this point where you can embrace training hard and eating well and looking after your body and enjoying your body being strong and taking up space, like when you're not dieting all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. If you can let go of the fact that you're not dieting, and if you can let go of the fact that you're not shredded or lean or a certain weight, and letting go, it's not easy. I agree. Like I mostly because I see it in my clients, and like, you know, the clients that I see every week, they're saying something about their weight or they're questioning their weight. They're like, why did my weight do this? Why did it do that? I wonder if it's because of this or that. And it's like, that's part of your journey. You need to be able to stop questioning your weight or stop questioning what you're doing when you hired a coach for a reason. You've been with me for a long time. You follow the directions, you follow your plan. So why are we still questioning the weight? Why are we, you know, we need to be in a building phase. You remember me telling you that it was going to take months, not days, not weeks. So why are we here questioning it? Why are we wondering what is wrong with me? Because there's nothing wrong with you. Your body is going to gain weight when you eat more, when you train hard, when you gain muscle. That's just what happens.
Yeah.
And people just can't let go of that because they're so fixated. One thing that I find is helpful that people just, once they get over it, it's like a light switch, is they're so obsessed with like the size of clothing they're wearing.
Yes.
Like, I need to be able to fit into this size pants
or whatever.
Small size 2 jeans, size 6 dress, whatever. And they keep buying the clothes that are their old size or the size they want to be. And they're while they're wearing that clothing item, they're constantly thinking about their weight and how bad they feel because the pants are like doing this, it's too tight, or the sports bra is too tight, or whatever is too tight. So yeah, you're going to be constantly thinking about the size because you feel like shit. You're strapped in to something that doesn't feel good. So what if you just bought the next size up that you actually are, and stopped buying sizes too small, threw out or put away the sizes that are too small for a while, and just see how you feel?
Yeah.
Generally,
I need to do that.
Yeah. Generally, when you're wearing something that fits you, you feel better. And if you feel better, you're not thinking about the size. And I've seen this happen. Like, people act like that's a crazy thing to do, but I've seen it happen over and over again with clients I tell to do that. And they're like, I got the next size up in jeans and I felt so good. Like, I wasn't thinking about it all night. I was actually just enjoying time with my husband.
And then you probably have less anxiety, and then you're probably not going to overeat or like feel badly about, your food or intake or whatever, and then restrict the next day or something like that.
Yeah.
Like it
doesn't start a vicious cycle of just self-destruction.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I had to like figure out how to dress my body differently.
Yeah.
I mean, I also got boobs.
Yeah. Boobs help for sure.
I was like, oh,
yeah,
I need to do like that.
Yeah.
Not
boobs help.
But
not everyone needs boobs, but I definitely am really happy that I got like super happy.
10 out of 10 recommendation.
10 out of 10. Yeah. Oh, well, I know that you need to get to an appointment.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So is there anything that you feel like if someone took away from this episode or takes away from you, like any message you want just like immortalized from yourself, what would it be?
Wow. That's a lot.
Yeah,
that's a lot of pressure. If I don't know, like, I mean, I don't have an issue with dieting or like getting lean or anything like that. I think I've just learned a lot from living in a body where I felt like I always had to be smaller. And so much beauty happens outside of dieting. And like sometimes people do need to diet for different reasons, for a show or like health or whatever it is. And like if that's you, that's okay, and like embrace that. But like life happens a lot of times outside of dieting, and holding yourself within a box and feeling constraint, but then also wanting this different life that's not fitting within your box. It's like you're just always fighting yourself, and to allow yourself to let go and just spend maybe some time not
With yourself.
dieting and like,
Yeah.
just.
Why would you want to spend so much of your life fighting yourself when you
Yeah.
can learn to like love yourself and actually thrive and actually be able to have that control over yourself?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
Cool.
Cool. Well, thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Tell them your like your Instagram handle and like how to find you. Are you accepting clients? Stuff like that.
I am accepting clients. And I mean, I'm about to go on vacation, but by the time this comes out, I'm sure it'll be after, and that's cool. Hit me up. So my Instagram is at jessica.e.best, I think. Oh my God, I should know my Instagram.
Just look for Jessica Best.
But
Or
you
I'll see in
can-
the show notes.
yeah.
She doesn't know her handle.
You can also, it's because I changed it, whatever.
That's right.
It used to be Just Be Fit.
Oh yeah, that's
I
right.
don't want that. My email is jessica@prophysique.com. But I mean, yeah, you can just message me, or if you're wanting to connect, you can message Rachel. But yeah.
I'll point you in the right direction. Cool.
Well, thanks.
Thanks for coming on.
I'm so happy that you asked me to come on.
Yeah, I'm happy that you came on. And I think like that was one thing that I was really excited to do with this podcast. Like I've said before on the podcast, it's just like I really have a lot of really smart, cool friends and colleagues too. Like there's going to be people on obviously that are like good friends of mine, like coaches and, you know, other people and whatnot. But I also will have people that are more just like colleagues, acquaintances. I'm excited to have them on too. But my goal and mission is just to amplify everyone's voices and just like have us all be able to collaborate and like share value, because there's enough out there for all of us to impact. And the more that we can get together, I think collaboration is something that can like multiply all of us and multiply our impact. So yeah, I'm excited.
Thank you. Thanks.